uppercut, uppercut, sonic boom! What eats all the pies, does 4K DPM, is absolutely extraordinarily large in real life, and is called the Jagdtiger. It's the Jagdtiger. This is a tank that I surprisingly had not ground, and I just bought myself the Senlac, set myself back about 20,000 gold, and I got an absolute cubic buttocks load of those ×5s and such, so heaps and heaps of experience, easy to get. I thought, I'll grind something. And I realized I'd never ground the Jaeger-Roo line. So I grabbed the Jag Panther. I've done that, and I'll do a video on that. But I thought I would have a little look-see at the Jagdtiger, because this is a tank I have not played for years. Now, the Jagdtiger was part of a huge, I think it was like 2019 or so, 2018 maybe, a huge buff to DPM. It was this, and the SU-122-54 became the highest DPM tanks in the game at tier 9. That was to keep up with the massive power creep that the Tortoise brought in, and all kinds of crazy things. And it's just not a tank that a lot of people talk about. And I understand the reasoning behind it, because TDs are played in a very, very boring way by most players. They really do not get the most out of their TDs, particularly when they are the top tier. And if there is one thing that this tank is amazing at, better than nearly all the other tanks in its tier, it is being a top tier monster. Why, you ask? Well, think about it this way. Most of the tanks at tier 8 don't have huge DPM. In fact, your really strong DPM tanks are nearly all TDs, and a strong DPM TD is high 2000s, like your Scorpions and such. This thing clocks 4000 DPM. And I'm going to show you its armor profile in a little tick and explain to you why that is such a crazy armor profile to run when you get to be the big dog. It doesn't go nearly as well versus tier 10 and tier 9 tanks. I mean, it does okay versus its own tiers, and you can push and you can side scrape with it, but you've got to be very, very careful. And I'll explain where and how you can mitigate the issues you're going to have with big boppers smacking you in the side. The problem at tier 10, obviously, incredibly large guns all over the place at tier 10, and all your heavies tend to have 350 millimeters of penetration on their premo, and that just negates all your frontal armor. But that's all right. When you get to tier 10 and you've got to play it like that, you play it judiciously as a TD. A backline sniper that works some magic by occasionally just out-trading other tanks. Let's have a look, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about with that armor profile now. So this is the reason this tank is so good as a top tier tank, because it's got ridiculous amounts of damage output. The DPM is truly extraordinary, and it's really accurate. It's not nearly as immobile as people consider it. It's just its traverse that's really bonkers. But when you're playing at tier 8 and you're up against playing at tier 9 and you're up against tier 8 heavies, you can see this is a Chieftain T95. It's got 265 millimeters of APCR pen. It's not doing anything. And so it's going up against a tank that has 1800 hit points and has double its DPM, and it can't pen it from the front if it's hiding that lower glacis, or if it's, side scraping off a wall. I mean, obviously that's a different story. When you get to tier 10 tanks like the Chieftain Mark 6, then you start looking, I mean, frontally, you can't really be penned, but if they use APCR, bang, like you're all green. It's over. But that's fine. You're not meant to be a hold the line, front line tank at tier 10. You are meant to roleplay a TD then, and it can fulfill both those roles. Let's talk about the gun, the thing that really makes it spectacular. It's 4,000 damage per minute. That's really big. Like, I don't know if you understand. That is just a huge amount of damage output. And it's a box. So you'll see how I'm pushing, but I keep pushing the edges. And the reason for that is quite obvious. If you push the edges, then you can angle toward the front and the one side, and you don't have to worry about the other. If you push the middle in this tank, you're going to die. It's one of the worst tanks in the game for pushing middle. The Jaegeru is exactly the same, only it's got a much stronger armor profile than this. It's not that slow. Like, I mean, it's not fast, but people seem to remember it as the tank that just didn't go anywhere, had a decent gun, but had horrific DPM for its tier, and it's not that tank anymore. And yet, it's just not popular. It's not a tank I see all the time at all. It's a tank that is a blow-through. When I played this tank to review it, when it got buffed out the yin-yang, I realized that it's a tank that can do really good things. And yet, in all the time since then, I've not really seen it as a flavor of the month tank, because it is very susceptible once you lose allies. And the problem is most people run it as a tank at the back. They never move it forward. And because they never move it forward, by the time it is 1v1ing or 2v1ing or trying to Kolobanov, everyone else is dead because the allies are all gone. But look at this. I'm on the front line. I'm hull down. I am working the magic here, and there's no way anyone is going to successfully push through me without getting absolutely walloped. Sure, they might come up and want to make a trade, but with 4,000 damage per minute and nearly 2,000 hit points, anyone that comes up to make a trade is limping back. They are not coming away a happy little camper. And you can see, once you get forward, the whole team is going to hinge on me here. I'm just going to absolutely slaughter this flank. Now, obviously not all games are going to be tier 8 and tier 9 games. You're going to play a lot of tier 10 games. That's fine. You all know how to play a TD at tier 10. When you're up tiered, you're basically going to have to be way more team reliant, but you still have a gun that has 0.3 dispersion, 0.308, can put 4k damage per minute out, and has a healthy dose of alpha at 460 alpha. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me that if you move this tank forward, you're going to hurt people. Even if they are tier 10 tanks, you are still capable of eating and catching and eating your own food. Like, if you roll forward and just make trades with a tier 10 tank, yeah, I mean, you might lose, you might win just because you got more DPM, but you're going to leave a dent. And this is something people don't realize. You are way scarier, and you can side scrape this tank. See how I keep running a side scope as I'm moving forward? You can run tungsten shells on it as well. I just bought the tank and I hadn't put the tungstens on it yet, which is my fault. And that is certainly something I would advise. The speed boost is a waste of your time and mine. But tungsten shells, adrenaline rush, 4k DPM, the ability to turn a 460 alpha gun into a 500 and something alpha gun, you a scary proposition. Really something that needs to be looked at by all and sundry. I hope you like this little journey down memory lane for me with the Jagdtiger, because I just had never ground this line, and I'm really enjoying grinding it. I'm also playing iPad, because if you watch the stream today, you'd know that I've just given up on playing Mac. I'm not nearly as good playing Mac as I am playing iPad. There's just no two ways around it. I play iPad, I carry. I play Mac, I need to be carried. Like, there's a pretty clear definition of labor there. Good on one thing, bad on the other. Your power to weight ratio is certainly not great. Your 8 degrees of gun depression is not going to get you over the line on that one. I highly recommend this line, and the Jagdpanther at tier 8 before it is a really fun tank to play. Both of them do well hull down. If you hide that lower glacis and you use that 8 degrees of gun depression, you can create some pretty interesting angles. The Jagdtiger, though, is a lot flatter, and if you try to go as hull down as you can with the Jagdpanther, you're going to flatten those cheeks out to the point where other TDs and, well, anyone with high pen is just going to rinse you. And that's not good for you, because it doesn't reverse very well. The mobility is not what it should be on reverse. Anyway, look after yourselves, stay safe on the battlefield, and as always, Bye for now. And remember, Fred the Parrot says subscribe. Take it away, Fred. Show him Fred. I love the parrot. Love me some parrot. Subscribe.